Amen. Well, as you've already heard, there was a great man of God by the name of Brother Blakeney, Dr. Brother Blakeney, that called Brother Mills and asked him to come to Oklahoma, North Peoria Church of Christ. And another great man of God called me by the name of Brother Dr. Brother Mills called me and asked me if I would stand in for him this morning. All right, now. So first of all, I feel very privileged to stand before you, being given this opportunity. It's a privilege to me, and I hope that I can make the best of it for you. He also gave me a couple of messages. One, the first message kind of concerned me. He told me, as he told Brother Waddy last week, preach the hell out of it. So what that said to me, because I know Brother Waddy did his job and preached the hell out of it. So I'm wondering, he must think we have a lot of hell in it. Because he asked me to preach the hell out of it. So I'm going to do that, do my best to do that. He also gave me another message. He told me to let you all know that the rent is due tomorrow, so that the contribution better not drop. All right? And I told him I would relay that message. So I did relay that message. Do not shoot the messenger that came from your minister. All right. But let us stand for the text. I'm coming out of John chapter 11, verses 20 through 26. And it reads, Martha, therefore, when she heard that Jesus was coming, went to meet him. But Mary stayed at the house. Martha then said to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Even now I know that whatever you ask of God, God will give you. Yes. Jesus said to her, your brother will rise again. Amen. Martha said to him, I know that he will rise again in the resurrection on the last day. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. Amen. He who believes in me will live even if he dies. Yes. And everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. Yes. Do you believe this? Right. Yes. You may be seated in the presence of God. Yes. I bring to you a lesson this morning entitled Life After Death. That is life after death. So we're going to look at the 11th chapter of the book of John. And John is one of the four Gospels, but not a synoptic partner like Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Right. In chapter 11, it's an old familiar story about Jesus raising Lazarus from the dead. And it continues on to verse 44. But we're only going to look at verses 1 through 26 and concentrating on verses 20 through 26. You see, Jesus encounters two sisters who are in the midst of extreme grief after the loss of their brother Lazarus, who had been ill. There's lots of lessons in this story, but we will look at how Jesus responds to them. So, Brother Whitey, if I could get you to read verses 1 through 6 for me.
Right. Now a certain man was sick, Lazarus of Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. It was the Mary who anointed the Lord with ointment and wiped his feet with her hair, whose brother Lazarus was sick. So the sisters sent word to him, saying, Lord, behold, he whom you love is sick. But when Jesus heard this, he said, this sickness is not to end in death, but for the glory of God, so that the Son of God may be glorified by it. Verse 5, now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. Verse 6, so when he heard that he was sick, he then stayed 2 days longer in the place where he was.
Okay, so in verses 1 through 6, we're introduced to Lazarus, Martha, and Mary. And obviously Jesus was close to them. After all, Martha and Mary had put in a first century 911 call. They were desperate, you see. But Jesus delayed for 2 days. Have you ever been sick like Lazarus and needed Jesus? Today you may have a physical illness like Lazarus, or you may be sick with sin like addiction and perversion lying, stealing, or fornication that may cause you a spiritual death. Maybe you're grieving the loss of your parent, spouse, your child, your marriage, your job, your financial security, your reputation, or even your dreams. But when Lazarus falls sick, his sisters expect Jesus to drop everything and rush to them. So have you ever got down on your knees and cried, Lord, Lord, please help me, heal me? Maybe there was a delay in the response of the Lord. You probably thought since you have been faithful, or kept his word a time or two, or avoided a temptation or two, that Jesus would be right there, like Mary and Martha. However, Jesus waits 2 days to proceed to go help. Are you waiting on Jesus to come to your aid as well? Maybe to heal a sick family member, or to relieve some pain in your life, put some extra zeros in your bank account, fix your broken marriage, or fix your home, save your home. I know I've been waiting on him to fix my problems, and it's been more than 2 days. So we don't know always why God waits to fix our problems. I think sometimes we're not ready for relief. We haven't suffered long enough. But sometimes he does it for other people's benefits. But in the purpose for the delay in John, it was twofold. One, Jesus wanted to be glorified by his involvement in this tragedy. And two, Jesus wanted to increase his disciples' faith. It is an important part of life that love permits pain, and pain equals growth. It is not fun to go through pain, but God's love does not guarantee us from shelter from difficult experiences that are necessary for us to grow spiritually. We grow the most during these times of testing, trials, and tragedy. I can't say I've always enjoyed it, but I know that it will make me a better person. The reality is that we live in a world that is corrupted by sin, where sickness and death and heartbreak are part of our everyday lives. But as Christians, we should value these experiences. We should never ask, why me? Instead, we should ask, why not me?
All right.
Another question we should ask is, what is God trying to tell me by allowing these tragedies?
Right.
What lessons do we need to learn? Whether God reveals that to us or not, we must trust him and seek him in the midst of our troubles.
Right.
You see, after ignoring his sister's 911 call and his delay for 2 days, Jesus told his disciples in verse 7 and 8, Brother White.
Then after this, he said to the disciples, let us go to Judea again. The disciples said to him, Rabbi, the Jews were just now seeking to stone you, and you are going there again?
You see, Judea was the city of Jerusalem, where the village of Bethany was. It was not Jesus' friendly. See, they had been threatened. They had threatened to kill Jesus there before, but Jesus told his men that they were going back. Jesus' disciples must have been saying, for real?
Right.
But they were concerned that Jesus might be killed, but they were probably more concerned that they might be killed.
Right.
So if you notice, though Jesus did not tell the disciples why he had a specific reason for them to go to Judea, it is not clear why he tells us what to do, but it's important for us to do it.
Right.
So the disciples went. Even after questioning Jesus about his directions, Jesus attempts to calm the disciples in verses 9 and 10.
Jesus answered, are there not 12 hours in the day? If anyone walks in the day, he does not stumble, because he sees the light of this world. But if anyone walks in the night, he stumbles, because the light is not in him.
You see, from that analogy, we can learn that Jesus is the light. And if we walk with him, we can see. And without him, we stumble and fall because he is the light. So we need not fear if we walk with God. While it is true that we live in a sinful world where God's people aren't exempt from the consequences of sin, it is true that God has a greater purpose behind the suffering of his children. God is both all-knowing and supreme. We do not understand the why, but it's important to understand the who. And as the story goes on, it becomes a little funny. At verses 11 through 15, Brother Ronnie.
This he said, and after that he said to them, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I go so that I may awaken him out of sleep. The disciples then said to him, Lord, if he has fallen asleep, he will recover. Now Jesus had spoken of his death, but they thought that he was speaking of literal sleep. So Jesus said to them plainly, Lazarus is dead, and if I am glad for your sakes that I was not there, so that you may believe, but let us go to him.
You see, at this point in the story, the disciples don't understand Lazarus' condition. They think that Lazarus is just simply sleeping. But Jesus tells them plainly, he is dead. So the disciples may believe that so the disciples may believe. And this is not the first time that he made believers out of them. Since they had been traveling with Jesus, he had performed many miracles on the way, each giving them a new trial, offering an opportunity for their faith to grow. Jesus wanted to teach his disciples, and include Mary and Martha, what it meant to trust and obey him.
All right.
Even in the worst situations, we start a relationship with God through simple belief. However, as we grow in our faith, through ongoing belief, each time we see God work in our lives, our faith should increase.
Amen.
He keeps on working it out, and we keep on wondering how it's going to work out.
Yeah.
See, how many times have you wondered if you were going to make it to the end of the week with the little money that you had, and you made it and you had some change? How many times did you say, Lord, bring me home, and you made it home safely? How many times did you ask Jesus, make me feel a little better, and you were well? How many times did you ask God to help you get a job, and you got it? Lord, help me to pass a test, and you passed it. How many times has God showed you his power in our lives?
Right.
We should learn from this. We should be like Thomas in verse 16.
Therefore Thomas, who is called Didymus, said to his fellow disciples, let us also go so that we may die with him.
All right.
So when Jesus...
So that's it. Most of us know him as Doubting Thomas. However, he shows us here different. Thomas was convinced that it was better to go with Jesus and face death with him rather than to stay safe where he was without Jesus.
All right.
That's a powerful principle. It reminds me of Toya and I's wedding song by Luther Vandross. I'd rather. Sing it with me, y'all. I'd rather have bad times with you than good times with someone else. I'd rather be beside you in the storm than safe and warm by myself. I'd rather have hard times together than to have them easy apart. I'd rather have the one who holds my heart. He knew which side his bread was buttered on. And he knew that he'd be safer with Jesus. So I'm going to change his name from Doubting Thomas to Devoted Thomas.
All right now.
See, we will face severe grief and loss. As much as we try to avoid pain, it is inevitable, and it will find us. Yet, walking with Jesus is the safest place on earth to be.
Come on now.
So no matter where you are and what you're going through, take Jesus. Take Jesus to the doctor. Take Jesus to the bank. Take Jesus to court. Take Jesus on your job. It's just like American Express. You don't leave home without it. You see, you don't ever want to be caught without Jesus. But verse 17 is one of my favorite verses because that's when Jesus shows up. Brother White?
So when Jesus came, he found that he had already been in the tomb 4 days.
All right. So Jesus makes it clear that his friend Lazarus had died. But it is crucial is his arrival time here in Bethany. It was 4 days after the death. But what is crucial is his arrival time. It was 4 days after his death. You see, according to popular Jewish belief, the resurrection was no longer possible on the fourth day. They believed that the spirit left the body in 3 days. So that explains why, after hearing that Lazarus was very sick, he delayed 2 days longer in the place that he was, back in verse 6, because he knew that it would take 6 days to travel to Bethany, which would make him arrive 4 days after Lazarus' death. And this would make the resurrection more miraculous. So God's timing is crucial. So when you're waiting on God to show up and show out in your life, just remember that his delay may be for a reason. He knows what he's doing, but we don't always know. So just remember the who and not the why, or in this case, the when. But in verse, Ronnie, go ahead and read verse 18 to 21.
Now Bethany was near Jerusalem, about 2 miles off, and many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to console them concerning their brother. Martha, therefore, when she heard that Jesus was coming, went to meet him, but Mary stayed. Martha then said to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died.
All right. So many other Christians came to console Mary and Martha concerning their brother. I said, so many other Christians came to console Mary and Martha concerning their brother. So many other Christians went to console Mary and Martha concerning their brother. See, as Christians, we need to support one another.
Yes, sir.
In times
Yes,
of loss and grief, so we can learn from that. But when Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she ran out to meet him. So she was upset, and she must have been feeling some kind of weight, questioning him. And given her emotional state she was probably in, she probably ran out to meet Jesus with an attitude. She probably had her finger pointed in Jesus' face and her head bobbed and said, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But she was expressing her anger and her disappointment. In verse 22, she says,
Even now, I know that whatever you ask of God, God will give you.
And if you had just been here and prayed for my brother, God would have answered your prayers. Have you ever felt like Martha, feeling dejected after God didn't answer your prayers or fix your problems right away? Now, Jesus could have checked her very easily by telling her, I told you this sickness would not end in death, with an attitude. But because of his love, note the conversation that takes place between Jesus and Martha in verse 23 through 24.
Jesus said to her, your brother will rise again. Martha said to him, I know that he will rise again in the resurrection on the last day. Jesus said to her,
That's not.
Okay.
Although Martha does exhibit some degree of faith, she does not expect Jesus to raise Lazarus from the dead. Again, Jesus could have checked her and said, do you not understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? I told you he will rise again. But his calm response in verse 25 and 26.
Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me will live even if he dies. And everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this?
Yes. You see, Jesus just blew Martha's mind.
Yes, sir.
He broadened her narrow vision. See, he was asking her faith to go beyond believing that her brother would be raised in the day of the resurrection on the last day to a deeper level of trust in Jesus, that he is the resurrection and the life. You see, the focus of Martha's faith must be in the person and not the principle. See, Jesus wants us to believe in him. He is our refuge in the time of storm. He is our umbrella in the rain. You see, he's our warmth in the cold. He's our AC in the heat. He is our shield in the wind. He is our light in the darkness. He is our shade in the brightness. He's our medicine when we're sick. He's our mobility when we can't move. He's our eyes when we can't see. He's our hands when we can't touch. He's our direction when we're lost. He's our friend when we're lonely. He's our peace in a time of war. He's our happiness when we're sad. He's our knowledge when we don't know. He's our energy when we're weak. He's our soap when we're dirty. He's our clothes when we're clothesless. He's our food when we're hungry. See, he's our drink when we're thirsty. He's our money when we're broke. He's our memory when we can't recall. But most of all, Jesus is your life when you die. See, he has victory, not just in eternity, but in the here and now. Because death is not the final word. We can have faith in Jesus Christ. We have gained a new quality of life that is larger than death. See, death becomes not an end to life, but a door to our eternal life. People call this world the land of the living. But I think it should be called the land of the dying. See, because we begin to die at the moment that we are born. See, and death is inevitable. But those who believe in Jesus Christ know that death will come. And we will pass out of this land of living, but into the land of living. See, we are on our way to death. We're on our way to life everlasting. This life is not all there is. There is life after death. And that means that we can endure pain and sorrow in the here and now. We can live in these sick, broken down bodies for a while. We can face loneliness, heartache, and pain for a season. But you see, trouble don't last always. Joy cometh in the morning. There's another life to come. And then, and only then, do we begin to live. So if you want to live forever, you can come now as we stand and sing the invitation.